Welcome back. My name's James Johnson, and I'm going to talk about Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire. It's going to be a pretty quick video, but if you haven't read the first 5 books of the Song of Ice and Fire series, or you haven't read the first, or haven't watched the first 5 seasons of the Game of Thrones series on television, so the first 5 of the books, the first 5 of the television show, I'm going to be talking about spoilers and potential spoilers for things that haven't happened yet. So, in this particular video, I wrote down some thoughts that I think are worthy of consideration, particularly regarding the topic that I've named this video after, Tyrion's democracy. Tyrion has slowly learned the importance of a fair trial. Having been disallowed from speaking on his own behalf, this was at the trial at King's Landing, where he wasn't allowed to speak. He wasn't even allowed to question the opposing party's witnesses. He was told he had to ask, may I ask the witness one question? And he was granted permission, but they don't have to do that. He had a biased judge, his own father, which would be biased, you'd think, in one way, but is actually biased in the opposite way. He can't even call his own witnesses due to the lack of protection for them as citizens. And he's also experienced more than once the absurdity of putting another man's life on the line in order to establish his own innocence. That makes no sense. It's a strange absence of separation of church and state, because the belief that the gods will decide guilt based on anything, rather than it being human judgment, logical, reasonable conclusions, is arguably a deletion of the separation of church and state. But they're not even aware of that yet in Westeros, the potential for that. Tyrion has sort of been Hand of the King before, in lieu of his father as proxy. He has traveled the world. He has been in battle, and he's both negotiated deals and played the game with the most powerful people in Westeros and soon potentially even Essos. And he has developed a distaste for the wealthy and powerful and a taste for the pleasures of the common man. If Tyrion is Hand of the King at the end of this story, he is in a prime position to create the first democracy, especially if he has a king who was elected, like the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch is elected, who chooses the motto, "We do not kneel," like the wildlings. Imagine that. A king who chooses the motto, "We do not kneel," and who was elected. That's not sounding so much like a monarchy anymore. And a king who understands the burden borne by the downtrodden, the cripples, the bastards, the broken things. And of course I'm talking about Jon being king, but these 3 aspects of it, being elected, choosing "We do not kneel" as his motto, and having been given up his freedom for things he didn't really understand. He was too young to understand what he was giving up, just like the White Walker, the babies that are turned into White Walkers don't understand the choice they're making. You might, like Benjen says, you might think otherwise if you knew what you were giving up. Tyrion is in the great place to create the first democracy, but here's the linchpin, the thing that will set him off above, make him have the realization, the epiphany, that the men can rule themselves. In Varys' riddle, Varys says, if power resides where men believe it resides, Varys says, power resides where men believe it resides, no more and no less. Then the real person in control isn't the rich, it's not the pious, it's not the noble or even the sellsword. It's the men. Power resides where men believe it resides. No more and no less. That's democracy. That's the people. All you have to do is show the people you're actually in control. Their control of you, the government's control of you, only works if you allow them to control you. Varys intends to imply through this quote that if you control public perception, you control the kingdom. That's the reason he's got Aegon coming. Tyrion will infer that what the meaning of this is the people must knowingly rule themselves. If power resides where men believe it resides, then men control who's in power. And you end up with an elected king, a hand of the king who creates a constitution, a kingdom whose motto is "we do not kneel," but they submit to a government at the same time. That's what happens with the wildlings. The wildlings only fight for Mance Rayder because they are willingly choosing to do so. We do not kneel, but we still submit by choice or make oaths that we will give you X and you will give us Y. It's a constitution. It's a contract between the people and the government. Power resides where men believe it resides. No more and no less. Thank y'all for watching.